Welcome to Cool Talk and my 200 favorite films. Wall Street. This is a movie for 80s yuppiedom, a great personification of a corporate greed by Michael Douglas as Gordon Gekko. A little cliched and overwritten, and Charlie Sheen just went through the motions since he was high during the whole production, but Douglas is very intriguing. Ferris Buellers Day Off. Before Home Alone, John Hughes' little comedy was lightweight and fun. Taking a day off from high school to visit museums, restaurants, parades, and baseball games, this is the longest day off I've ever seen. When Matthew Broderick as Bueller sings Twist and Shout during a parade, it's a showstopper. In the end, we learn that Bueller's real motive is to take his friend out of his self-imposed paralysis of insecurity and doubt. Oh, and the Ferrari is nice. King Kong. For some people, my saying that I like Peter Jackson's remake better than the 1933 original is sacrilegious, but I loved it. My only complaint is the running time. It's too long. It took forever to get to Skull Island, and then too much time was spent there fighting prehistoric beasts from a land before time. The dinosaur stampede loses credibility as it goes on. It's as if director Peter Jackson was enjoying his big budget potential too much. But better too much than too little. The art direction is superb. I like the 1930s look of Broadway and Times Square. The rainforest of Skull Island. I like Andy Serkis, who acts out the visual effects to create the giant, lovable Kong. Naomi Watts is perfect as the new Ann Darrow. The film is a visual marvel, an epic adventure. The Killing Fields, the true story of Sidney Schanberg as he reports on the front lines of the Cambodian Civil War along with his Cambodian interpreter, Dith Pran. The country falls to the Khmer Rouge. Sidney gets out, but Pran is left behind. In a typical Hollywood film, we would follow the American, and he would fly back like Rambo to rescue his friend. But in real-life fashion, Sidney writes 400 letters trying to learn Pran's whereabouts and his fate. Pran is surrounded by dying millions in a country gone mad, quietly awaiting his chance as he risks starvation and endures until he sneaks away. When the happy ending finally occurs, it rings true because it is true. Stand By Me. Stephen King proves that he can write more than just horror stories. Rarely do you see a film about 12-year-olds acting like true 12-year-olds with a strutting self-awareness as they stride towards adulthood and realize what their parents are. Nowhere near the perfect people that they thought they were. Well, there's cursing and child philosophy such as, can Mighty Mouse beat Superman? There's no talk of girls yet, but lots of false bravado and insecurities. For many of us, it's a nostalgic look back. The Three Amigos. Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase play Hollywood movie stars mistaken for real gunslingers and hired to save a town from a gang of bandits in Mexico. Now, the three think they're being hired to film a movie, but realize too late that this is real. Now, they are funny as expected, but the real treat is Alfonso Arau playing the villain, a bandit called El Guapo. He is hilarious, just as hilarious as he is immoral. Back to the Future. A 1980s kid gets into a time machine and travels to the 1950s and runs into his parents who are now high school students, and then his mother gets the hots for him. Pure fluff. Now, it's easy to underestimate Michael J. Fox, but he is perfect. As a student disappointed by his boozing mom and pushover dad and trying to break away, soon realizing that his parents were teenagers just much like him. Anyway, this is greatly entertaining and even suspenseful as Marty tries to get back to the future as a zany fish out of water antics ensue. Fox shows great charm and great energy as he carries this film. The Color Purple. Our heroine, Celie, suffers incest, an unforgiving upbringing, and years of spousal abuse until she emerges strong and confident in post-Civil War America. Now, the men in this film seem confused, as if post-Civil War freedom engulfed them with liberties they don't know what to do with, so they abuse their women who react differently to their ordeals. Sophia, played by Oprah Winfrey, defies everyone, but her spirit is later broken. Shug Avery, played by Margaret Avery, is living large but lost her way, only to find it later on. And the real treat, Whoopi Goldberg as Celie suffers tremendously to regain everything that she has lost and more. Heartbreaking, heartwarming, a great film, and also the pivot point where director Steven Spielberg began making more adult films. Eleni. When Greece is run over by communists, a peasant woman sacrifices her life to sneak her children out of the country. Years later, her son, all grown up, vows revenge and leaves his own wife and children to get revenge on the man who ordered his mother's death. It's a true story. And when the son connects with all the love that his mother had for him and how she gave up her life for him, he has to decide whether or not to sacrifice his vengeance for his own children. Kate Nelligan shines as a poor peasant woman, Eleni. Eleni deserves to be in our memories. The Falcon and the Snowman, another true story. Imagine a college kid getting a clerical job with the CIA. When he gets disenchanted with the U.S. government for meddling in other countries' affairs, he decides to sell government secrets to the Russians with the help of his childhood friend who deals dope and goes along for the thrill. This 1970s story does well to remind us how easy two naive young men can go astray as they pull off what looks like the ultimate prank, but things go horribly sour. Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn are magnificent and elicit both our sympathy and our disapproval, because it's as if we know that this could happen to our kids too. Death Wish. After countless revenge films, this is a Charles Bronson movie that he will be remembered for. A New York City architect has everything going for him, but when goons break into his apartment, rape his daughter, and kill his wife, they destroy his life. After failing to find some semblance of peace, he walks the streets to attract muggers to rob him, and then he kills them. The message may be fascist, but the question remains, what would you do? Could rage stir up your lust for blood? Runaway Train. Two hardened criminals escape from an Alaskan prison, hop onto a train, but when the conductor has a heart attack and falls off, they are left alone, and it is dangerously speeding ahead. This film is not your typical 80s action movie. These are not nice, petty theft, charming con men. These are hardened criminals that were treated like animals, turned into animals, or as Jon Voight says, worse, human. This is Jon Voight's best performance as a murderer who's given up on himself, even though the audience hasn't. And Eric Roberts as his dim partner is also good. The film is bleak, claustrophobic, but it's even poetic. It's not great, but much better than expected. Once Upon a Time in America. At 3.5 hours, it's very long, but it's lyrical and compelling. Unfortunately, even though I love gangster films, this movie often displays bad taste. Maybe that's intentional. Director Sergio Leone does not glamorize crime. These characters are despicable. There are scenes of rape, several murders, drug use, a child prostitute, a child getting killed, newborn babies being kidnapped. These guys are the bottom of the barrel, and it is rough going. However, it's also a masterpiece of leisurely storytelling with flashbacks and flash forwards in a dreamlike state. Robert De Niro and James Woods are superb as a lifelong friends who lost their way. And in the end, there is betrayal, regret, and heartbreak, wasted lives, and lost lives. But then comes some factor of redemption. We ask ourselves, do these men deserve redemption? The movie seems to think so. Splash! Daryl Hannah plays a mermaid who falls in love with a New Yorker played by Tom Hanks. She has fins in the water and legs out of the water. John Candy plays Hank's outrageous brother, and Eugene Levy is a scientist bent on exposing the mermaid. A great cast. It's a fluffy, light-hearted Ron Howard film with his heart in the right place. If you have a heart, you'll love Splash. Ghost. Patrick Swayze is murdered, but he remains on Earth as a ghost to try and save his wife Demi Moore, whose life is in danger. A sad yet uplifting romance, and for comic relief, there's a medium played by the ever-funny Whoopi Goldberg. Miller's Crossing, a quirky Prohibition-era crime tale directed by the Coen brothers. Big Irish boss Leo is approached by another big boss, Johnny Casper, who wants permission to kill a disloyal bookie. Leo says no, and there's a gang war. Good performances by Albert Finney and John Polito, but as Leo's loyal henchman, Gabriel Byrne is stoic and gritty, And for one extended scene, John Turturro plays the bookie who begs for his life, and he is mesmerizing. The film is odd, a little hard to follow, but full of life. Gritty, layered with rich dialogue, beautiful cinematography, entertaining, and one of the Coen brothers' best films. City of God, award nominee director Fernando Meirelles gives us 20 years of Brazilian gang life. This film flies by as we meet character after character in this squalor of misery and a sense of having few options. We do root for the protagonist, Lynn, who wants to be a photographer, and this does turn out to be his road to salvation. We root for him since he's the only one who holds a semblance of goodness. Using real-life street kids instead of actors, we get a dosage of realism, along with a visual style and a razor-sharp editing, accompanied by a staccato music theme. As critic Jeff Strickler said, difficult to watch, but hard to look away from. Die Hard. Bruce Willis made his transition from the TV screen to the big screen with this shoot 'em up. John McClane is a tough cop trying to stop a heist as a group of thieves hijack a building with several partygoers locked in there along with McClane's wife. But it's the villain, Alan Rickman, who puts this movie over the top. This is Professor Snape, all you Hogwarts fans. He has an unmatched, menacing delivery that only he can provide, such as pointing a gun with weary patience and saying, "I'm going to count to 3. There won't be a 4. Yippee-ki-yay! Midnight Run. A bounty hunter races against time, the police, the mafia, and another bounty hunter as he tries to deliver his captive to a bail bondsman. Who knew back then that De Niro could play comedy? But the real surprise was Charles Grodin as the embezzling accountant that everyone's after. His droll, deadpan delivery is perfect against De Niro's exasperated, streetwise tone. Action, laughs. Too bad there was such an overuse of the F word. It could have been PG-13, but outside of that, you'll have a great time. Twins! Scientists put together the DNA of 6 prominent men to make one Superman, but end up with a pair of twins, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Arnold's a kind-hearted but naive genius who searches for his long-lost brother, the short, street-smart DeVito. It's a hoot. Warm, and while it gets into the cliche, family is everything message, it doesn't matter. We get what's promised. A very funny good time. Thanks for watching, but don't stop there. Click on the next video to continue the countdown. This is Cool Talk.